Good evening, Dr. Greenaway. Thank you so much for letting me interview for my psychology subject. So the assignment is on communication in the professional context. So I was just hoping you could give me some pointers on communication and how you use it every day.
Yeah, sure. My pleasure, Victoria. And please call me Ruth.
Okay, so I'll just jump straight into it if that's okay with you.
Sure.
What exactly do you do at the university?
Okay, so I'm an academic developer and I work in the Centre for Support and Advancement of Learning and Teaching. And I'm actually a teacher as well, which means I communicate a lot with a lot of different people.
Okay, so I personally don't really know what an academic developer does, so could you explain that to me, please?
Yeah, okay, so an academic developer works with the academics at the university, so the lecturers and tutors, to look at their courses and the activities that they do in their classes and their assessment items, and looking at whether they're actually working and meeting the learning outcomes for the students.
Oh, so what you do is help the academics develop their courses to make it more productive for the students?
Yeah, that's right, I do. So we look at their courses and we renew the curriculum is the wording we use for that.
Oh, okay, so how do you use communication in that role?
Okay, so when I'm working with academics, I have to be very careful about the way that I speak to them, mainly because it is their course and it is their work and it's their intellectual property that's being that we're looking at, and so I have to be very careful that I am not, I guess, disrespectful when I'm talking about some of their activities. Whether I think it's a good idea or not, you know, I really need to listen to them to decide what's the best way to go.
So it sounds like there might be a little bit of conflict that you experience in your role. I have a lot of trouble with communicating in like a tense situation when I know someone's going to not be very happy with me. So how do you communicate so that conflict doesn't arise?
Okay, so a lot of the things that I do can cause conflict. So if you're looking at somebody's work and you're giving them feedback, some people can take it a little bit personally. So when I first came into the role, I went to each of the schools and I spent a lot of time with the academics. So we would put on morning teas and I put on some workshops and things where I actually had a lot of time just conversing with the academics, not necessarily just about their work, but about them personally and their interest areas and sometimes about their research. So we'd have coffee and I then was able to build a rapport and we had a trust between us that we had like ideas, I guess, about academics.
Wow, I didn't expect that. Like, that's a really great way to build rapport with someone and make it so you don't seem so scary by telling them.
Yeah, that's true. I guess in an academic setting you don't really have friends, you know. It's quite difficult to be, you know, looking at somebody's work and critiquing it.
Interesting. So you said that you also teach as one of your roles in the university.
Yeah.
How do you adjust the way you communicate between, say, an academic and a student?
Okay, so I am a tutor in education and I am training HP, the teachers of the future. And so in education there's a lot of acronyms, for example, and there's a lot of jargon that we really need to wade through and I have to help the students unpack. And I'm also really careful that I don't use a lot of that jargon when I'm speaking with them. But if I do and I start to introduce it, I try to remember to explain it to them, which is very different to when I'm speaking with an academic. So when I'm speaking with an academic, they understand the language of academia and they understand the latest strategies that the university is employing. But if I was to use that sort of language then with my students, they wouldn't understand what I was talking about, which that wouldn't be very good.
So you sound like you're a really great communicator, but is there any way where you really feel like you struggle when you're like maybe transferring between academics and students?
Well, sometimes I have so much to do in a day that I tend to forget, and you can tell on their face usually that they're not understanding what I'm saying, so then I realise the context of which I'm in and then I can change my language.
So you read the body language for almost like prompts and things about...
Yeah, when I see on their faces that I can tell they're really not understanding or, you know, sort of questioning what I'm saying.
So you also said you do research, is that right?
That's right, I'm also a researcher and my research at the moment is with Year 4 students. So going from speaking with academics all day to then speaking with Year 4 students, I've got to be really careful about the language that I use again and also talking to them about things that they understand and asking them about their experiences. So I guess a lot of that's about listening as well.
Yeah, so you mentioned how you build a rapport with the academics and things, but when you're doing your research, you're obviously not going to be there for an awfully long time. So how do you build a rapport with say the young ones? Because I guess it'd be a little bit different.
That's quite a hard question. So, with the Year 4 students, I try to think of something that they're interested in, and so it may be sport after school, or a book that they're reading, or I can notice something around the classroom that I can then talk to them about. And usually, kids like to tell you about themselves and about the things that they do in their interest areas. So just by trying to find a interest between us, or something we can talk about, builds rapport.
That's really interesting.